Welcome to Data Wars.
Okay. All right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Data Wars. Today I have with myself Andy Elwood. I am also very excited to do another episode with Prash. So here we are. And before I get into asking questions with Andy, I quickly want to give a background. Andy has a very impressive background. He's today the founder and CEO of Stretch. His company is reimagining grocery shopping by putting consumer interests, and they're putting a lot of intelligence behind it. He's also a serial entrepreneur. He's a coach, a board member. When I was talking to him, it felt like he's been doing startups pretty much all his life. So we're very excited to talk to him about the data side of things, the startup life. His experience includes leadership roles at Waze. He was at Marquee Jet, Basket, and various mission-driven organizations. I think the key here is, he's very passionate about building platforms. He's a leader, and we're very excited to talk to you, Andy, today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Andy, tell us a bit about your background, just to give the audience an understanding of sort of how you got started and your journey sort of getting to this point.
Yeah, I grew up in Texas, and I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and I have been told that I have big brother energy. And I take that as a compliment. I love coming up and meeting folks and kind of like figuring out where are they in their journey, and then doing anything that I can do to maybe help them reach the thing that's on the top shelf. Maybe help them get over the fence, like I did for my younger siblings. And that's always kind of been a little bit of my philosophy of kind of the way that I move through life, is kind of just look at everybody as an opportunity. Like, could we collaborate? I don't know. So most of the time the answer is no, but sometimes you meet somebody, you're like, we should do more of this. And that's how I've met a few of my business partners. It's how I've met a few of the nonprofit leaders that I support and work with, and how I've built a community that I'm really proud of in New York City amongst friends and professional colleagues that are really working on cool things. And it's a privilege to be able to rub shoulders with some of the folks that I've gotten to know, just because we're like, man, I'm curious, like, something I don't know, I know something you don't know. Let's swap knowledge and see where it goes. And so that's been a little bit of the journey, and I think the reason that some of the doors that have opened for me have opened as easy as they did. Not to say that there wasn't hard work in between, but I think that just a spirit of curiosity has always been something that I was raised with, and my parents fostered in me, and that's proven to be pretty helpful in my professional life.
It's funny because, Andy, that's the spirit of this podcast as well. Me and Ash rubbed our shoulders about a year and a half ago randomly, and we said, hey, let's do a podcast. Everybody is doing it.
I love that.
So I think it's interesting because, first of all, we were very excited to have you on this platform to talk a little bit, since we have come to know about you, and since we had a chat earlier, I think last week now already. I think it sort of comes down to your philosophy around the building and founding companies. You joked around when we talked, or even half joked, I think, about having PTSD of building companies. Yeah. So before we get into sort of the technology side of it and talk a little bit about what you're doing now and all that, it feels like for me an emotional aspect to this building for you. Yeah. You feel like it, listening to your story, it felt like to me you keep coming back to the building part of it again and again and again, no matter how hard it is. Yeah. So take us through that a little bit, because I think there's something really powerful to unlock there.
Yeah. I think that there's 2 things that I know for sure in life is that people do what they're incentivized to do. And so if you don't understand why somebody's doing something, it means you don't understand what they think their incentives are. And then the second thing is that people don't rise to the level of their potential. They rise to the level of their expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think that one thing that keeps me coming back to doing the hard thing over and over again is I have really high expectations of myself and of the world around me. And I forget who said the famous quote, but it goes something along the lines of, the reasonable man conforms himself to the world, but the unreasonable man does everything in his power to conform the world to his view of it. Is reliant on the unreasonable man.
I think George Bernard Shaw said something like that.
Yeah, there it is. That's the one. Yeah. And so I think that I have become more and more comfortable with the fact that I'm an unreasonable person, that I have unreasonable expectations of myself, of the people that I choose to associate with, and of the world around me. And I think the thing that keeps me coming back to building companies, keeps me coming back to challenging myself with something new, is that I see something that could be different in the world, and I unreasonably want to be a part of changing it. But I don't need to be the only one. Like a friend of mine jokes that it's kind of like King Arthur had a round table, right? I don't need to sit at the head of the table. I just want to get a great table with the right people around it and see what we can do together. And so I think that that's one of the things that I love the most, is just being somebody who convenes groups of people together to talk about things that are hard, to talk about things that are big. And sometimes out of that comes new friendships. Sometimes out of that comes opportunities for investment. Sometimes out of that comes companies or projects that we get to work on. And you test things, you learn, you test, you learn. Some people fall off, some people lean in, and all of a sudden you've got something that is more than enough of a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and it's really energizing, and it's it's a little bit addictive. Once you've built something and you've seen something, you conjured something from nothing, and then somebody's holding it in their hand and they're telling you this is the coolest thing that I've ever had in my life. It's like, oh my gosh, I want that feeling again. But then when it doesn't work, all of those same emotions show up on the other side. And the highs are really, really high, but the lows can be really, really low. And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned is you have to be okay with that standard deviation. Like if you want that high, you have to be willing to expose yourself to that low. And so I've experienced both sides, but I keep coming back for the chance at that high.
It almost reminds me of emotional roller coaster, right? I mean, it's almost you're chasing it. You love the highs and you love the sort of the lows as well as you love them.
Yeah.
Just because the mission is so powerful that you want to create something which is useful to the world and add value to it. So, how do you build teams today, Andy? You've been through this a few times now. In your founders, you look for someone who has sort of been a founder like you, multiple ventures, or do you look for somebody fresh but naive? And the same philosophy, when you're building teams, because a big part of being a founder is being able to hire the right people at fairly quick speed. You don't have much time to kind of So how do you approach that? That's, I think, the most important aspect of any startup.
Yeah, I mean, people are 100% the most important thing, right? It's team, and TAM. And really thinking about an obsession with the problem you're solving is something that is, I think, one of the things that I really screen pretty hard for. There's a lot of people who can do the work, right? But if they're not obsessed with the problem, they're probably not going to work quite as hard as somebody who is. And it's not mandatory. But I remember there were people who just didn't use several other companies that I've worked for. People just didn't use the product that they were building. I'm like, what do you like? How do you even know if it's good or not if you yourself are not a user? And I think that's something that I really think a lot about is an obsession with the problem, because everything takes longer, everything's harder, everything costs more when you're doing something for the first time. And so you've got to have that resilience to say, what, cool, learn something, but that problem still exists. So therefore we're not done. And for me, it's, having the lens of, this is a 10-year problem. I want to work on this problem for 10 years. And I don't know the solutions that are going to be available to me 3 years, 5 years, 7 years from now, because they haven't been invented yet, right? The speed with which technology is moving right now, there are platforms that we will all be using in 3 years that don't have a single line of code written yet, and it may not ever be written, right? It may be prompted, and so I think that you have to hold the path, you have to hold the how loosely, but obsess about you will know you have achieved the thing when this problem no longer exists. And I think that's the obsession
that's a great sort of segue into also first of all, everything you said made perfect sense to me based on what I've seen and heard and experienced myself. Building great teams that actually on board with your ideas and thoughts and challenge you sometime on, is that the right way or should we do it in a different way? It's such a critical thing, because that makes a powerful force that actually help you go on to do these amazing big things that nobody even thought about, because
Yeah.
there's no learning here, right? Everything you're learning is every day
Yeah.
new
Right.
thing coming out of it. And the other thing obviously is, like, if you think about, I don't know, I know people talk about Amazon is a great example of how you build for the future, not for tomorrow, not for today, not for stock price
Yeah.
going down this quarter, for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. And there are plenty of examples of this. And I know, Andy, you have done this uh, before too, right?
Yeah.
When I think about our discussion about when you scale the location-based social network you built from, I think you talked about 2 million to 6 million users, and eventually selling that to Meta. I would love for you to spend some time and talk about that experience. How was that like? How did all these different people, psychology, technology factors kind of contributed to that journey of yours? I think that sort of brings home in real way. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Gowalla was the first startup I joined, and the App Store had just come out. And so it was early days. Like we were, Steve Jobs actually, when the iPad, when he displayed the iPad for the first time ever, he's like, and there's a few apps that you can already download for the iPad, like Gowalla. And then like he literally held up our product on stage, and it was like, all of us Apple fanboys just lost it. But I led business development for Gowalla, and the thing that I figured out was like, it didn't matter what we said the company did. And it didn't matter if we put out press releases or tweeted about the big partnerships that we'd done. We had to borrow audiences that would amplify the magic that they were creating for our users and let the brands take credit for it. So my favorite deal I ever did at Gowalla was a partnership with Disney. We had closed a bunch of early partnerships with like CNN and the NBA and National Geographic, and the team was building all of those. And I was overly ambitious, and I probably closed one too many deals. Like I was like, let's go. And so I was told, hey, like take a break, like, go speak at this conference and like slowly roll just a little bit. Because I was, like late 20s, and I was just like hungry. I was just like, this is awesome. Like, we're speaking at South by Southwest. And I said, okay, fine. I'm willing to do the most challenging partnership possible. And I asked all the engineers on the team. I was like, I know you guys are busy coding all the things that we've already closed, but like, if you could pick any brand, any partnership to do next, what would it be? And they said, Disney. Get us Disney parks. And it was a location-based social network, so being able to have the idea of like going to a Disney park and seeing custom icons on your map, in our style, was like really exciting to them. And so we figured it out. We figured out how to get a partnership with Disney. And the thing that I wrote in the contract that ended up being a really, really big deal for us was they had to lead the press release. So nobody cared about us putting on a press release because nobody really knew who we were. But that was our compensation, was them writing the press release. And so we ended up on the front page of the tech section in the New York Times. And then all the other partnerships got pretty easy after that. And we got acquired by Meta. At that point, it was Facebook, pre-IPO about 9 months later. And so that, I'm not saying it's because of that, but like that was one of the things that kind of put us on the map and gave people a little bit of a better sense. And so that was a lesson that I think I've really carried with me, is if you can find a way to create something that's really unique and special, but let someone else take credit for it, who has a bigger audience, who has a bigger network, it's a very valuable strategy.
That's pretty amazing.
That's fantastic.
It's very smart of you too.
Very smart
to do that, Andy.
Yeah. Tell us about Please Rob Me. I know it was a viral moment in the privacy world.
Yeah.
Our listeners would love to hear about it. I'm sure most people don't know about it.
Exactly.
Such a cool URL.
Yeah. So being for early in the App Store, right? When you think about everything that has been enabled because of location services on your phone, right? There would be no Uber if you couldn't have location on a smartphone, right? There would be no Waze if you didn't have location on a smartphone. But when we first launched Gowalla, we had to convince people, like we had to do tutorials about how to turn location on your phone, because most of the apps that were initially there were not location-based apps. And so us being one of the first location-based apps, us and another company called Foursquare, somebody built a Twitter scraper that looked for URLs for the Foursquare or the Gowalla posts. So if I checked in at Disney World, I'd tweet, I'm at Disney World.
Yeah.
And it would be .gowalla. And then they created a website called pleaserobme.com. And at the headline, it said, "These people are not at home right now." And then it just puts your tweets on just flow up and down the screen. And I remember when it first came out, like we all freaked out, and like TechCrunch wrote about it, and they're like somebody big privacy hacker was like, we know that you're not at your house, and and it was just in hindsight it's really funny, but at the time it was like, oh wow, I guess we are broadcasting that we're not where our valuables are. We're not in our homes, and so it was it's always funny because someone on the internet is always going to find a way to give you a little bit of shade. But this person just happened to do it with a great URL.
Yeah, no, that's a great story, and also it's a great example of crisis management. When you have an app which you want to get acquired, and you have something like this come out, all of a sudden your notional value goes from maybe 10 million to nothing, because all of a sudden you're risk now. So managing the crisis around that, I cannot even imagine what you guys had to do for that. I wanted to while you're talking about that, there's a lot of technology being built these days. So like somebody back then built pleaserobme.com. And I see I run a few tech conferences here in Toronto, and I meet a lot of people who want to do these startups just for doing startups. There's this thing in people like, oh, it's cool, I'll do startups. Sure. And the government is supporting it. There's a lot of incubators around. They got an office in this space, and they feel like we've achieved something just because we're part of this incubator. But there's no real value which they're trying to solve. They're trying to just build tech. And that's why I think, when I was first researching about Stretch, what I really liked is you guys put customer value and then technology. And that's a very hard thing to do, because, we live in this world where, you just hear these news, somebody acquired for $100 million, $50 million, $500 million. And it's just such common news these days. Like 3 million seems like, what, just $3 million? It's a lot of money. But that space is so saturated now, but everybody wants a piece of that. So how do you filter the ideas? Because I love tech, and I also sometimes just build tech for building tech, just because, like you said, all these platforms are coming out, learn them. And just to learn them, you build something simple, right? Yeah. Yep. But the hard part is actually, how do you come up with these, value propositions where you filter them out? And for that reason, how do you come up with the idea of Stretch? Why was it important to you?
Yeah. So the test that I do for any idea, whether I'm thinking about investing in it, mentoring, advising, or building it myself, is this a multivitamin or is it a painkiller? So if this morning when I left my house and I'm on my way to my first investor meeting, and I realize, oh my gosh, I didn't take my multivitamin this morning, I'm not going to pull over and go to the drugstore, buy another thing of multivitamins, and take a multivitamin. I'll just do it later. I'll do it tomorrow.
It's a nice to have.
It's a nice to have. But if I'm on my way to an investor meeting and I have a headache and it is not quitting, I'm pulling over, finding some Advil and making sure that I pop it in my mouth. Like I need it to solve the problem. And that for me is like the first test that I do when I think about an idea. Is it a multivitamin? It's fine. Or is it a painkiller? Like I have to have it. Like someone has to have this. It's solving a pain point that's so clear and visible, and when you've solved it. That's kind of the first test that I do. And there's nothing wrong with multivitamins. There's nothing wrong with, things that make your email more efficient. Great. If you're excited about that, awesome. But just know that that's what it is. And like learn the lesson that you're there to learn from vibe coding the thing that you're vibe coding. A friend of mine calls it transient software, right? It's there for as long as it needs to be there, but then you're not trying to turn it into a company, But then for me, building Stretch was kind of a call back into the arena. You think about Teddy Roosevelt's quote, about the man in the arena, and it was a worthy cause, right? It was something that I was willing to spend myself, not invest, not allocate, but like spend. Like I don't get these years back. I'm going to spend them on trying to solve this problem because it's a problem that I grew up with, right? It's a problem that I've thought a lot about. It's a problem that I know the people whose lives are going to be different because of the way we're using technology. And that is the worthy cause. Trey Stevens has an essay called Pick Good Quests. And in it, he talks about there's a 2x2 matrix of easy, hard, good, bad. And he says that repeat founders, people who have experience building, should always be working on hard, good problems. And that's the quadrant where a lot of people avoid because there's a lot of easy, good things that you could do. There's a lot of easy, bad things you could do. But like hard, good problems are the ones that he really encourages people to focus on. And that's one of the things that I really hope Stretch stands for is this is a huge challenge in an industry that has no interest in reforming itself, has no downside pressure or accountability to reform itself. But if we empower shoppers to actually have better information about their groceries and about the prices that they're paying and their choices, both locally and online, that changes a lot of things for a lot of people. And, this year, in America, 84% of people are worried that they're not gonna be able to afford groceries this month. 84%.
Wow.
Because the prices are still up 30% from what they were just 5 years ago in the pandemic. They went up in the pandemic, supply chain issues, no problem. And then they just stayed up. They just stayed there. And they're incrementally growing from there. And it's not like an Uber ride where you have surge pricing because there's not enough cars close by. Fine, you can wait 10 minutes. Like, no problem. Wait 10 minutes, the surge pricing goes down. But that's an optional choice, right? Yeah. There's surge pricing on bread. There's surge pricing on milk. Like there's pricing manipulation when you're trying to feed your family. Like I get pretty worked up about that. And I want Stretch to be a source of truth for shoppers that give them the ability to understand what they're supposed to pay and then what their choices are from one store to the next so that they can know before they even leave their house what their best choices are and where they can save money and they can save time.
Let's talk a little bit more about Stretch. I think that's the core of the podcast. I feel like, Andy, I want to spend more time there. Look, I think I was telling you before we started hitting the record button here, I came from a lower middle class family in India. I had a dad who earned a government salary. And Ash probably relates to this a lot because he's been in India. A government salary in India is considered the lowest sort of denominator, right? And now I feel like privileged to a certain degree because I've come to achieve a lot of great things where I don't feel like I don't have to worry about a daily spend. But having come from that background kind of teaches you a lot about the importance of saving money when it comes to simple things like, weekly groceries that you need to do. That's a must-have. Like, as you said, this is not a privilege thing. This is not like a surge price on the Uber that you may or may not be able to take, but you have to buy grocery. Like you can't eat like that week if you can't buy grocery. And if the prices are going up at like that cliff that we are seeing, it's a hard choice for families. And I'm for one, I'm super excited that that's the problem you decided to solve and figure out a way to help families. And I think that's a big cause.
I think,
because it makes a huge check.
In the post-COVID world, it sort of boils my blood as well, to what Andy was saying was they have just accepted the fact that people are willing to pay. And this is true for many things outside of grocery too. And they never went back. The profits are increasing and they never went back to it. And it's almost like you have to question assumptions at this point. You have to advocate with the government to lobby these things because it's getting out of control. So yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, Andy. I think the one thing which stuck in my head when we were talking was the 20% promise. I think that's pretty bold in on itself, right? Like saying we can help you save up to 20% or however you talk about that, I think is an interesting sort of thing on its own, and it's very impactful. So I want you to just kind of spend a little bit of time talking about it.
Yeah. So you think about what we spend money on. The top 3 to 5 things that we spend money on all have some source of truth that allows you to understand what your choices are before you make the purchase, right? So you've got Zillow for your home, you've got Auto Trader for your car, you've got GoodRx for prescriptions, you've got Kayak and Expedia for travel, you've got GasBuddy for fuel. But for groceries, we walk into a big store with refrigerators and hope that they carry what we're looking for and hope that they charge us a fair price.
That's true. I think Andy's video paused.
If you go to a different store and you recreate your shopping list. Oh, are we back? We're good now?
I think there was a little bit of a glitch. I would
Good
say.
now, Andy. Go on.
Now we can hear you.
Okay.
If you want to kind of go back and restart that, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, sure. But with groceries, the only way we can really compare right now is to take the receipt from the store we just shopped at and go into another store, find all those same products, check to see if the prices are similar. Or what I've heard from a lot of tech savvy budget shoppers is they download 7 or 8 apps for 7 or 8 different retailers, rebuild that shopping list in all the different apps. It takes 2 or 3 hours just to try, and then they're like, wait, all right. And then they write it down in a file to see where they should shop this week. And kind of the unlock or the aha for me is there's 26 billion trips to the grocery store in the US every year. 90% of shoppers shop with a shopping list of some kind.
Right.
If that shopping list was attached to inventory, was attached to prices, and now in the age of AI got smarter the more that you used it, what would that do for the shopper? What power would that give shoppers, not just individually, but collectively? If you think about a lot of shoppers coming together to say, we're wanting to buy these items, what stores are willing to work with us? What distributors are willing to work with us? What delivery companies are willing to work with us? It changes the power dynamics. And it's something that that we saw at Waze, right? The collective knowledge of I'm willing to share one thing about me. This is where I'm driving, and this is the speed that I'm driving. But what we were able to build in the back end with Waze was the ability to assimilate all that information and churn out something that was valuable information to you because you shared your piece, but then everybody else's information ended up feeding the recommendations.
Collective consciousness.
Same thing now with grocery, right? Every person who downloads Stretch, a free app, you build your shopping list, you tell us what you're looking to buy this week. We then show you on a map all the stores close by to you that carry those products or similar products to allow for like store brands or regional brands. And literally turning left or turning right at the intersection can save you 20% on this week's shopping list. And for a lot of families, that's thousands of dollars a year when it's all said and done. And it's not every week. Some weeks you may be saving 5 or 10%, but some weeks you might be saving 30 or 40%. But the important thing I think is that the shopper has the choice, right? The shopper has the agency to say, you know what, this week saving money is more important to me than driving an extra 3 miles, right?
Yeah.
But it also depends on I don't know about y'all. I'm a young daughter. If she's with me, I care less about price. I just want to get home. If I'm by myself, I'll take a little bit longer, go to the store that's a little further away, and save a little bit more money. But if I've got my baby girl with me, we're going in and out, and I want to make sure that I'm going to a store that carries the product that I'm looking for, that I'm not wasting my time.
I'll tell you one thing. Having a teenager who just turned 13.
Okay.
I think you said 26 billion visits. I feel like a billion of those just me and her do. Because she wants to always go to Target. She also wants to always go to whatever her preferred store is, and for buying clothes and stuff. So
but I think that Ev Williams, one of the founders of Twitter, he said the most successful technology is taking an action that people already do and making it better with technology. And that's really kind of like the our wedge into what we're building with Stretch is the easy, simple shopping list, right? If you think about the most popular shopping lists that exist right now, it's a piece of paper on the side of your fridge, Apple Note that you share with your spouse, or a text from your roommate, right?
Yeah.
It's and none of that is attached to inventory or price, or it gets smarter, right? You just throw it away as soon as you're done with it. There's a lot that we think we can learn with the smart shopping list. And what is really exciting is if you think about what's coming with agentic commerce, a smart shopping list is all of the first steps of what you would need to build in order to build a shopper side grocery agent. And so that's something that we're thinking about in the future.
No, that's pretty cool. About 2 months ago, I was doing a lot of Uber groceries. And every week, the same items would add up, and I would go and, my wife would give me a list, and then I would go and manually add it in Uber. And then, I was like, this is pretty annoying. So I started wipe coding like a smart shopping list where I told her to put it in WhatsApp, and then basically to a WhatsApp chat, it would basically, filter the items. And this is all wipe coding. It would take the items, add it to this UI. And then the part which I couldn't do was connect to Uber API, and then automatically add it to my shopping. Not order for me, but just like when I log in, it says your grocery list for this week is ready. All I have to do is, okay, I'm good, press order. So that's where I was starting to get to. So I can relate. I think everybody can relate to the mission you guys are driving.
I love it.
Here he goes again, Ash, wipe coding and all that stuff he loves doing. He's such a techie guy in between us.
And that's really curious about the backend and you guys are using. Tell us a bit
I
about
knew
that.
he will come to that question.
It is for my smart shopping list.
Exactly.
I know initially when you guys started, it was crowdsourcing like ways people would kind of put in the prices, but still, that's a lot of data points. In real time capturing, 2 million. There's so many stores, there's so many items, different SKUs. They all are called different things in different places. So very curious about, what backend technologies are you guys working with?
Yeah. So when you think about all the things that have to operate on the back end to have the simple experience of shopping list, recommendation, go to the store. The biggest challenge for us is being retailer agnostic in our master catalog of product and prices. So if you think about every other trip to the grocery store, it starts with a retailer first. So even Instacart, which works with lots of different retailers, the experience is you go in and then you pick the retailer that you want them to deliver from, and then you build your list.
Yeah.
And so for us, when we're working with 28 different retailers so far, but we're adding more and more every week. We have 500,000 products in our database that we're managing that all have different relationships to each other. So the vector database of products is massive. Because you've got different store brands, right? So Target has its brands, Walmart has its brands, Aldi has its brands. Trader Joe's is all just Trader Joe's brands, right? But if I have something on my shopping list that's I wrote it in as a regular item, but I want to be able to consider Trader Joe's, we have to know what the equivalency of that product is at Trader Joe's. And so being able to think through all that complexity is a very unique set of...
Bread's a great example, right? There's 200 kinds of bread. That also in just 5 different stores. I'm sure if I come down the States, there's like 400 kind of breads. And my wife wants a specific kind of multi-rye.
And so the post regress like database on the back end, in the way that they interact with each other, and just have the logic of if somebody spells lettuce with 3 C's, what do you do with it? Which lettuce do we pick? Because there's a lot of different lettuces, right? And so that's where the reinforcement learning from the shopper's actual decisions gets really interesting. And so, it becomes part of our data moat, right? Like these are all behavioral things that they react to. And so we can understand that when on my shopping list, if I write cereal, I know what that means if I'm in the store. If I sent cereal to an Instacart delivery guy, he wouldn't know like which one I meant. Stretch knows that when I write cereal on my shopping list, I mean Special K extra protein red berries.
It's very cool.
Because I've
very much personalized for your what you call a cereal.
Exactly.
Because that could be different for me. It's a different brand, different
100%.
Whatever, right?
Yeah. So. And that's where I was pitching what Stretch is doing to Liquid Death. And I was sharing what we're building, and I had the opportunity to meet their chief media officer. And midway through the conversation, he goes, "Are you guys raising money?" And I was like, "Yeah, but like, I want to talk to you about like what we can do together." He goes, "Yeah. Let me invest first, and then we'll figure that out." And so he ended up becoming one of our angel investors, which that was a big vote of confidence, and so very, very, very grateful for that. So.
That's awesome.
The back end is pretty gnarly, but it's also the reason that nobody else has done this, right? It's the reason that none of the large language models are going to do this, right?
I think that's pretty amazing that so many thought process go. I mean, I could see an element of what we do from a data management side of the house too, kind of aligning to like reference data plays a big role, right? What do you call in one system versus the other system versus one grocery shop versus the other? I think there's elements of that. I think, but I want to bring it back to one topic that was kind of top of mind for me. Like, grocery, first of all, is a notoriously thin margin business, like in airline and other things, right? So it's a difficult industry to be in. So I'm just curious, what's been the hardest lesson for you to learn as you were building Stretch, right? Like, for example, some assumptions you go with and then they turned out to be completely different or wrong. Yeah. So I'm curious if you had any instance of that kind of euphoria moment here as you were building Stretch.
Yeah, the early days, we did not get a lot of love and respect from retailers. Because retailers are kind of in a spot where they like the status quo.
I can imagine that. It works 100% well for them. Yeah.
And while it is a thin margin business, they're doing okay. They're doing just fine. And I think the thing that has been most surprising and exciting, but was a lesson learned, not the hard way, but like it took a while for this to come true, is that retailers are really starting to understand that if you look at the deal that Walmart did with OpenAI in October, this type of commerce is going to happen everywhere. It's not just going to happen on Walmart.com. It's not just going to happen on the Walmart app, right? People are saying we need to be considered everywhere. If somebody's thinking about buying something that we sell, we want to be in the consideration set. And so thinking about how we work with retailers to have verified listings, right? Have verified inventory, have verified prices. I think is one of the challenges that we're still thinking a lot about, because it's all, at first it feels counterintuitive to participate in pricing transparency. But when you think about the ability to understand pre-purchase intent, that holy grail of here's all the things that are on the shopping list that this person is thinking about purchasing in the next 72 hours, right? In the $1.8 trillion grocery industry, all of the data is post-purchase. They know what you bought at the register, but they don't know what you were thinking about buying or intended to buy when you walked into the store. If I go to Whole Foods later today, I have 25 items on my shopping list and I walk out with 18. Whole Foods thinks that it got an 18 item trip.
Yeah, but you actually started with 25. Yeah. They don't know that. Yeah.
And they don't know that, right? They also don't know where else I considered shopping. They also don't know what else I considered purchasing. And so being able to align those incentives is part of what I think the power of the technology will do.
Right. So unlike me wanting to buy a watch or something, which I'm doing research on the internet all the time and finding what's my best one is before we go and actually buy it. So I kind of left my trail throughout that journey of 2 months or whatever I'm doing research on to see which watch actually I'm interested in. And I've shown interest in many other brands before I ended up buying whatever I wanted to eventually buy. So that history, it doesn't really exist, right? In a,
Right.
I mean, how many times we are checking 10 serials before we go to buy one, right?
That's exactly
We just
the
don't have a time of the scale of doing that at all. So,
exactly. Yeah, the
Yeah.
current ad tech stack doesn't make sense for grocery.
yeah.
And also, one item isn't going to shift you. Like if I can save 40 cents on penne pasta,
Yeah.
that's not worth following me around the internet for.
No.
For your
I'm gonna
watch,
try it
for your
out.
watch, it probably is. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it out and see if it's not good, and go try a different one next time, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm buying
Yeah.
them every other week or whatever. So
Exactly.
I have spent
Interesting.
a lot of my time working for Safeway, Walmart, JCPenney, and so I've had pretty big, mostly in the data side, master data, reference data, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it was a while back when I was at Walmart, they were trying to build a catalog of their suppliers, worldwide suppliers, so they could see how much they're buying worldwide. So they had numbers for, let's say, Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble has many, many brands. So they're trying to kind of come up with, collective buying we do across the world, so we could basically ask for better discounts from suppliers, right? So I've seen sort of, all these, most of the retailers' data on the consumer side as well, sort of the behavior patterns they study and what they try to do. And one sort of notion which has stuck with me is, from any big company perspective, enough is never enough. So, if the margins are 10, they want 15. The profits are, X, they need X plus, 10% next year. And I'm asking this because, you're on that journey where you're trying to provide more value to the consumer. And as you go down that path, you will be at odds with the profit-making beast. For lack of a better word, I wouldn't call it beast, but profit-making machine.
Sure.
How do you sort of see aligning incentives, without sort of, making enemies with the grocery store? Probably not enemies, but just kind of putting them to work with you in a way that is also beneficial for them.
Yeah, I'll give you one example that is very tangible, which is there's $100 billion of food waste every year in grocery stores. Food that they just have to throw out. And if you think about the fact that if there were people with a smart shopping list close by to a store, and the store knew that that person was intending to buy the thing that they were going to have to throw out the next day or the day after, all of a sudden we could reduce $100 billion of food waste and make sure that the people who were wanting to buy those things had the opportunity to purchase them, and maybe purchase it at a discount. We think about the distribution centers. Distribution centers are, they're calling the stores saying, "Hey, we're sending all of this. Make room for it." That's when, things go on sale all of a sudden. But it's only on sale if you're in the store and you walk past. But the store doesn't know that you have that intent to purchase. So just that right there is just one example of how I think it actually is. We can align the incentives around localized demand and localized supply, and make sure that we just reduce that waste from just being thrown out to being, some revenue source as opposed to just a loss. But I think there's a lot more things like that I'm excited to partner with retailers, to think through and make sure that, that the information that we're using to serve the shopper isn't at the harm of the retailer, but there's just a new relationship that has to be formed in the process.
Got you. Andy, I want to, as we head to the closing here, I think just a couple last questions, me and Ash, I think. I think the one big thing in my mind is, as you evolve, I mean, you have a great mission, you have a great sort of offering. I want to hear your sort of feeling on where you want to see the stretch in the next 5 years. What does that landscape look like? What is the shopping intelligence platform that you're building right now will look like 5 years from now, in your sort of purely from your vision standpoint, where you want to take it?
Yeah. I think 5 years from now, having tens of millions of shoppers broadcasting, to our platform, this is what I intend to buy this week for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And those shoppers being given the best choice by retailers and brands.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this visual in my head of the agentic commerce that we're seeing announced left and right from all the retailers. Hey, we've got Sparky from Walmart and we've got Rufus from Amazon.
Yeah,
Sparky and Rufus exist for one reason only: to make more profits for the retailer.
of course.
Yeah. And me as an individual shopper stands no chance at negotiating with that agent.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Stretch shopper side agent can represent me as a part of a collective of this is what we are planning to buy this week, give us your best option. That relationship where the shopper actually has the power and information and is a part of a community that is willing to put their information out there, say, this is my intent. I'm going to buy these things. I'm going to spend money this week on these things. You have them, but so do you. Who wants my business this week?
Yeah.
That is a future state that I get pretty excited about.
I really like. I think that's putting power in the hands of the grocers, not the companies, but the people, day-to-day people. Yeah. I absolutely love that vision of yours.
That's amazing. Before we close, Andy, just for everybody who's listening, who's trying to tackle unsexy problems that are hard, what's one piece of advice you'd like to give them, especially when the going gets hard and the PTSD starts kicking in?
Yeah. You already have what you need. That no matter how high the highs are or how low the lows are, you have a 1,000% success rate at getting through the toughest days you've ever experienced. And if you learn to trust yourself and stay in just a little bit longer, lean in just a little bit harder, you'll be really surprised at what you can actually accomplish. Because most people step out at the first sign of danger. And they're like, you know what? Not for me. But if you just keep doing small things, staying in a little bit longer the next time, I think about my friends who love cold plunges, right? You stay in a little bit longer the next time. And you start to build this resilience to doing hard things. You get to flex that muscle and hopefully flex it on something that you're really passionate about and that really helps other people.
That's really powerful. I think that's not just for startup founders, it's important for everybody. I would say it's important for me. When I go for a run, I feel like, I can't sometimes keep up when I need to keep up. But those runs where I keep up and I go through that short-term pain, or the one where I feel like, I achieved so much today. Yeah. That feeling is powerful. And look, Andy, this has been an extremely, extremely great conversation. We loved everything that you shared today and the mission that you were on. We hope you really get there sooner. Actually, you don't have to wait that long and get there even faster, because this will benefit everybody. We can see common people getting benefit from that, families getting benefit from this, and I think that's powerful. So for those who want to get in touch with you, want to talk to you, what's the best way to do that, Andy?
Yeah, Andy at stretchai.com is my email address. We are hiring, mostly in New York, but have some jobs on our website, stretchformore.com, FORMORE. And I am at Andy Elwood on all social media.
Perfect. I love it. Ash, any last word before we close?
I just want to thank Andy. Thank you, Andy, for your time today.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Andy, look, this has been amazing. And hey, Data Wars family, this was another great episode coming from us. I hope you're listening. I hope you subscribe. I hope you share this knowledge with others as well. With that, let's sign off. Ash, Annie, thank you so much for your time. Have a great
rest
of the day.